Welcome to Queer News Tonight. This is the world's first and only LGBTQ daily news television show, broadcasting live and available on demand on your favorite streaming channels.
We are proud to announce that YouTube has recognized Queer News Tonight, certified by analytics company vidIQ, as the world's most popular LGBTQ streaming news show. Our queer stories have reached over 10 million views.
We are proud that we have more than 1,000 new subscribers in the last month, and the Queer News Tonight has more YouTube subscribers than any other LGBTQ brand in Florida.
Over 500,000 of you have watched this show in the last 90 days. We thank you for watching and supporting our voice in the LGBTQ community. There is no other news program in the LGBTQ world like Queer News Tonight.
It is Tuesday, February 11th. We are live and literally out of the closet and into the headline. So many of your important stories we'll tell this evening on Queer News Tonight.
You're watching Queer News Tonight, the world's first daily LGBTQ evening news show.
Welcome to the world's most important LGBTQ evening news show.
HOTspots Magazine, Happening Out Television Network, is a nonprofit 501c3 media company in the same model of PBS and NPR, but designed for the LGBTQ community.
Our nonprofit mission is to support the 11 pillars of our LGBTQ community. We want to inform and educate the key issues of lesbian, trans, Latino, Black, healthcare, seniors, students, faith, social justice, business, and queer culture. Help us support our diverse community.
We are part of one of the largest LGBTQ nonprofit media companies in America. HOTspots Magazine and Happening Out Television Network. In 2025, our magazine is celebrating 40 years of the LGBTQ experience, and Queer News Tonight is celebrating our 5th anniversary with more than 10,000 LGBTQ TV stories. We will produce the 25th anniversary of our Stonewall Pride Parade and Festival on June 14th. Our magazine, events, television news, talk, and entertainment shows support our mission to educate the LGBTQ and broader community.
In 2025, more than 100 anchors will host this show to support the LGBTQ community. Let's meet today's anchors at Queer News Tonight. Let's welcome anchor Jeff Oliverio. He is a financial advisor and certified financial planner with Truist Wealth in Fort Lauderdale. Jeff is one of the founders of the president of the Hollywood LGBTQ+ Council. Jeff, Gay Ocho returns as one of America's largest Latino LGBTQ Pride events in February 16th. Please tell me what's happening.
Well, the Gay Ocho Festival, the nation's largest Hispanic-led Diversity and Inclusion Festival, returns to Little Havana, Florida on Sunday, February 16th. Powered by Forward Miami, the event brings a vibrant celebration of music, art, food, and culture to Miami's iconic neighborhood. Thousands will gather to honor love, acceptance, and unity in an unforgettable experience. The festival highlights the beauty of diversity and the power of inclusion through performances, exhibitions, and community engagement. For more details, visit gay8festival.com. I'm happy to see this event is back. Again, it's in a very iconic area in Miami. It's our only Latino-led Pride event, which I think is obviously incredibly important here in South Florida. So I wish them lots of luck and lots of great weather, which looks like we're going to have.
You know, I think about all the events, and then we have these, like we have Pride Fest and these others, and it's just even more important than ever that we all knock down those walls, the barriers between us, and go support everybody. I mean, I've not been to this one. I've never been to Little Havana yet, so I don't spend much time in Miami, and I need to start spending more time there. So I'm definitely looking forward to going to this one.
I'm going to try to do it too.
Just curious, with the Latino support for Trump in the last election, how does, if anybody knows, how does that impact this kind of event, since that community is torn now, especially with the call for sending Venezuelans back and then potentially Cubans back. There's this new diversity splitting between even the Trump supporters amongst themselves. So hopefully that will turn this event into a much greater celebration.
Right.
Yeah, it might be worth it to randomly ask someone in the crowd.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting. I mean, obviously one of the city commissioners for Miami-Dade County, Damian Pardo, is one of the founders of this event. Mm-hmm. So, I'm assuming, he's been able to garner some support, even though, again, dwindling numbers that are in allies of our community in Miami-Dade County. So, get out and support them so they can come back again.
Yeah. Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Gay Ocho Festival on February 16th. Let's welcome anchor Gregg Shapiro. He is an inductee into the Chicago LGBT Hall of Fame. Gregg is the author of 2 short story collections and 7 books of poetry. Gregg, the 21st Miss and Mr. Noche Latina pageant will be held at the Aquaplex on February 17th. Tell me what's happening.
That's right, Vaughn. The 21st annual Miss and Mr. Noche Latina pageant is set to dazzle Fort Lauderdale on Monday, February 17th at Aquaplex, formerly known as Lips. Doors open at 8 p.m. with the competition starting at 9 p.m. This year's theme, Casino Lucky 21, promises to an evening of glamour, talent, and fierce competition. Reigning title holders Alicia Lee DeWitches, Arwen Alirio Mantilla Acosta, and Kelly Raspberry will headline the event, joined by current Miss and Mr. Florida Court, Godfrey Arbulu and Isaiah Sanchez Hilton, and the Noche Latina family. Contestants will compete in evening gown, swimsuit, talent, and Q&A, vying for more than $3,500 in prizes and cash. Tickets start at $25. For reservations, sponsorships, or more information, call Happening Out's Scott Holland at 954-478-4587 or message on Facebook. I like competition. I'm one of those people who doesn't like to compete, so I hope the best one wins, but can't we just all be winners? I mean, wouldn't that be nice if everybody could just say they were Mr. or Miss, but I guess they can't be. I guess everybody likes sports, as we know from this past weekend, and they like competition, so go for it, kids.
Well, those of us who have had children know that there was a generation of kids that everybody was a winner, and that that did not work out very well.
Right. You're right. Compete.
So there's something about competing. There's something about accepting that some people worked harder to achieve something, and that everybody shouldn't be awarded equally depending on how much they put in, but nobody should be penalized for not winning. And that's a difference.
Right.
Good point.
I think it's important just to remind people, who are not familiar with a lot of the pageants in our community, how important they are for representation. And a lot of people that, come to these pageants thought that at some point they could never be represented like this. So I love these, and we've had some of them here on set. Take part in Queer News, and I know several people that are in the pageant community, and I would say it's a leadership building event more than anything, because they do go out to represent in the community in a lot of different spaces.
Right. And you had me at gown. I'm sorry.
Really, I was interested in talent.
There's talent, but gown. No, gown.
Oh.
I mean, those women that come out. I'm sorry. Those are things
Well, right now at Stonewall we have the exhibit of the Imperial Court, and that is sort of the creme de la creme of all of these things.
Yeah.
The International Court is celebrating its 60th anniversary.
Oh, wow.
The Imperial Sun Court of all Florida celebrating its 6th anniversary, and both are on display at the Stonewall National Museum right now.
Okay.
The gowns and the crowns are spectacular, and anybody who has not seen them should really come in, because the 60th anniversary of an LGBTQ organization is by itself pretty miraculous, since Stonewall was only 56 years ago.
Yeah.
Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the 21st annual Miss and Mr. Noche Latina pageant on February 17th. Let's welcome anchor Robert Kesten. Robert believes in universal human rights and has dedicated crucial years of his life to the integration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights around the world. He conceptualized the UN Decade of Human Rights in Education and is now the executive director of Stonewall National Museum, Archives, and Library. Robert, the 2025 Stonewall Standing on the Shoulders of Heroes Gala celebrates with icons on March 1st. Tell me what's happening.
Well, the Standing on the Shoulders of Heroes Gala will take place, as you said, on Saturday, March 1st at 6 p.m. at the venue in Wilton. It's hosted by us, and the event will celebrate LGBTQ leaders and their contributions to our community. Diana Nyad, the swimmer who was featured in the film Nyad last year, which was up for an Academy Award, will also be attending the event. And this year's honoree is Tristan Schucraft, who is the founder of Mr. and now Trist Hotels and a wide range of other LGBTQ properties across the United States. And the late Edie Windsor, whose Supreme Court case helped secure federal recognition for same-sex marriage, will be inducted into our Standing on the Shoulders of Heroes global exhibition. Her widow, Judith Cassin Windsor, will accept the honor on Edie's behalf. And for details, please visit stonewall-museum.org. So we're excited. We expect a couple of other named people to show up as well, but we're not at liberty to say who those are right now. And unlike Stonewall before, we keep having well-known people showing up at our space. So not too long ago, what's his name? Alan Cumming showed up, and then Don Lemon showed up,
Yep.
and now, what's his name? The comedian, book writer.
Frank Tuccaro?
No. Funny hair, big glasses, was on Hollywood Square.
Oh, not
Charles Nelson Riley.
He's dead.
Who else has big?
But you would know him if I could think of him, but I just can't. It went right out of my head. But he's coming in March to read from his brand new book called It Wasn't a Good Idea at the Time.
Bruce.
Bruce Valanche.
Bruce
Valanche.
Wow,
Yep.
okay.
And already, as of today, we have like almost 60 or 70 RSVPs.
Wow.
So
great.
it's very exciting to see how important our culture is and how important our history is to people in this community, especially since Florida has absolutely led the way of being ground zero
Right.
facing our community.
You know, we've sat around this table and we've talked a lot about, you know, the heroes and standing on the shoulders of heroes before, especially in the LGBTQ community. And it just makes me think that this type of event is a wonderful thing to get those younger individuals out there to learn and to help educate them. It'd be
History.
great
You have to know the
find
history.
a sponsor that could sponsor all the youth to come to that event, right? To be
It-
part of that and see that grow from that one
It
event.
would be, there is no way for us to go forward unless we know where we've been.
Right.
Because every single thing that we need to do has been done by our community, and our community has really set the standard now for most of the other movements that are going on. We took all those movements, civil rights, women's rights, and we coalesced them in a way that makes it prepared for the 21st century. But unless we know where we came from, we do not know how to go forward. And the best example I can think of is, had we learned our lessons from Anita Bryant, there would have been no DeSantis. But we didn't learn those lessons, or we didn't learn them well enough, and we became complacent and we became apathetic. And when that happens, the worst rises. But this event should remind us of all that we can do to turn things around and have the bright future that we all hoped for.
Did you think about the adversary they were in the times of their lives, in their youth, and compared to, I mean, in some cases they say it was worse than we are today.
And think of the stuff we lived through too, that we lived through.
Right? Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think it's an important event, but again, just the fact of honoring our history when there is such a movement to erase our history, there could not be a better time to support the event. So, best of luck. I know it's always
And
a
the
great
museum and the archives, because
Yes.
we are the national collector
Right.
of this stuff. Very few other organizations collect nationally. Most of them collect regionally. So we have things from all over the United States, and if something happens to those things are not replaceable.
Yeah.
The library isn't replaceable.
Absolutely.
Queer News Tonight looks forward to seeing you at the Standing on the Shoulders of Heroes Gala on March 1st.
And of course, let's welcome tonight's lead anchor, Vaughn Biggs. He is a community outreach coordinator at Holy Cross Health, a vice chair of the Ryan White Part A Planning Council, and a founding board member of Trans Ed. Vaughn, the HIV is Not a Crime Awareness Day is happening on February 28th. Tell me all about it.
February 28th marks HIV is Not a Crime Awareness Day, first observed in 2022 by the Zero Project and the Elizabeth Taylor AIDS Foundation. The 2025 theme, You Care About Ending HIV Criminalization, You Just Don't Know It Yet, urges action against outdated laws. Despite medical advancements, over 30 U.S. states still prosecute people based on their HIV status, leading to unjust imprisonment and increased sentences. This Awareness Day amplifies the voices of those affected and pushes for legal reforms to decriminalize HIV status. Supporters can learn more and take action at hiv.gov. Now this, I actually just wrote an article on this that just came out today on Out South Florida on this topic, but it's fascinating when you look at our numbers for Florida. So I brought some statistics for that. And part of that is from 1986 to 2017, we had 874 HIV arrests.
Wow.
So Black represents 45% of the people living with HIV community, but yet 56% of those that have been incarcerated for HIV crimes are Black. So the disproportionate is just highly outnumbered. On top of it, 27% women represent people living with HIV, but they are 51% of the people that are incarcerated. So I kept digging. I was like, what's making this happen? You know,
Yeah.
and you think there's several things. Well, one, to begin with, it's cost us $12 million for those 874 HIV arrests as far as taxpayer dollars, and just in Florida. But it's sex work, it's non-consensual sex offenses, it's donation of blood and other body products without disclosing that they were HIV positive. And it's consensual sex without disclosure. And part of the things I read is it's not so much that they transmitted HIV, but they view it almost kind of, I would tie it into like, let's say drugs. You get arrested with a bunch of drugs on you, they can get you for the intent to sell. They get you on the intent of transmitting HIV.
Wow.
So it's like, it was very kind of eye-opening to read this and then to see the statistics. And it, you know, these are just things we have to continue to bring awareness about because they are affecting so many people and lives. And there's so much more with HIV today than it was 30, 40 years ago. So.
Yeah, and it's, you know, I'm fearful with all of these cuts to so many government programs potentially of how much education, especially for younger people who were not coming up at a time when HIV and AIDS was on the forefront of their minds, even though it hasn't gone away, of course. How are they going to be impacted by not getting access to education or access to services? And it's a scary time. So we need to elevate that message, I think, across our community.
Yeah, the cuts are going to be detrimental for sure.
And not only the cuts, but also just the political climate. Women are being pushed back. Blacks are being pushed back. Gays and lesbians are being pushed back. So when you combine that with cuts, when you combine that with the legal structure, it can only get worse unless people stand up. And people don't always stand up when it's somebody else.
Right.
Yeah.
And our community has to do a much better job.
Absolutely.
Queer News Tonight looks forward to participating with you at the HIV is Not a Crime Awareness Day on February 28th.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Vaughn Biggs, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. Wilton Manors police distanced themselves from ICE immigration raid on Wilton Drive. Tonight, Queer News Tonight reports that first Trump ICE immigration raid at the construction site on Wilton Drive. First reported by ABC Miami yesterday afternoon, ICE came to Wilton Drive and it included allegations of agents being excessively aggressive. Reports suggest that an immigration raid at a Wilton Manors construction site turned confrontational, raising concerns within the LGBTQ community about local police involvement with federal authorities under the Trump administration. Workers reported that ICE agents arrived unexpectedly at a construction site in the heart of Wilton Drive. They detained one man before returning and questioning others.
Get off! Get off! Get off! Why you hear me? Why you hear me? Don't ever hit. Okay, don't touch me. Okay, get off.
If you see any people like Spanish, they look straight right away, like we hiding something.
The subcontractor in this scuffle with officers at the scene asking us to protect his identity. He's now afraid of retaliation from law enforcement.
Okay, yo estoy grabando ahora porque aquí están entrando a una propiedad privada.
The man saying ICE agents showed up at his site Friday morning. DEA and Wilton Manors police also seen here.
Somebody talk to him so he can see the order.
Agents taking two men into custody. The subcontractor, who says he is legally documented in this country, says agents asked for everyone's identification, including his.
Once they had the person they needed, why do you need everybody else's ID?
General contractor Gregg Shapiro says things escalated when the subcontractor tried to grab the cell phone from one of the men who was cuffed. Schaefer claims law enforcement was trying to gain access to it.
They took the gentleman's phone and tried to put it in his face to open the phone up and get into his phone.
Hey, you're not listening.
It was just, I was taken back. And again, the aggressiveness of one agent, I think, was just over the top.
Schaefer said several agencies flooded the scene along with local Wilton Manors Police Department, which created confusion. After the incident, Wilton Manors Police Chief Gary Blocker made an unprecedented statement even before the community could process the event, reflecting how sensitive the issue is. The statement in Facebook said, quote, "Two immigration and customs enforcement ICE-led operations recently took place in our city. The Wilton Manors Police Department does not initiate or coordinate federal immigration enforcement actions. ICE operates independently and determines when, where, and how it is to conduct its operations," end quote. However, after this raid, business owners in Wilton Manors are seeking clarity as it has ramifications on largely tourism and entertainment-related businesses. It is still unclear which agency clashed with the subcontractor. Trump's immigration policy came to Wilton Drive yesterday. Queer News Tonight will continue to follow this story. You know, part of me thinks when you have federal agents show up, they don't. Local officials have no say. They have no input in that. And unfortunately, if it's federal, you just have to cooperate and go along with it.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of these, you know, from what I'm hearing too, is they're now seeking out people to give, you know, leads or people who are reporting things, and you know, it's gonna, especially like in certain industries. I mean, it's a way to kind of take someone's business down in some ways. I mean, if you know, I know my partner works in you know, office cleaning, and you know, his company of course has a very strict policy on hiring people. They have to do background checks. A lot of them are in financial services buildings where they have to have, but there's a lot of companies out there that don't do that. And so, you know, there's going to be these, you know, kind of lines in the sand drawn, and you know, people using this as a method to kind of attack different businesses, or if you know, a restaurant has a bunch of people that are working there that, you know, I think we're going to see it more often, right, unfortunately.
But you also understand that they are looking to create fear.
Yes.
And so they're not just looking for illegal people that are here undocumented. They're looking to create fear in businesses and in communities where they don't like the people. So Wilton Manors is a really good place to hit and say, you could be next, or you could get picked up with these other people. They have picked up citizens. They have threatened to deport citizens. They're talking about putting American citizens who are in jail now in foreign countries' jails. So this is just an indication of how uncomfortable they want us to be.
And it's no surprise that Trump's jackbooted Gestapo acts aggressively. I mean, big surprise that they're acting like assholes. At some point, I'm sure, like you said, they will be back to terrorize our community again.
Wow. They most certainly will.
That is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Von Biggs, and let's queer up South Florida and Florida. HOTspots magazine celebrates 40 years with a special Valentine's edition on February 13th. HOTspots is celebrating 40 years with a special Valentine's edition coming this Thursday. The magazine is part of HOTspots Happening Out, the largest nonprofit LGBTQ media group in America. This new HOTspots issue will include many interesting features like 5 timeless Valentine's Day gift ideas and 7 Valentine's Day date ideas to break from the norm by Family Features. They have also shared 5 easy DIYs to display your love in the new issue. You can also find a feature on the Florida Renaissance Festival. This year will be the 33rd anniversary of the Renaissance Festival. So you don't want to miss this fun event on March 23rd. More details are in the magazine for you. Scott Holland sat down with Corinth Multeri for the exclusive HOTspots interview as, I'm going to say it wrong, Ailey 2 comes to our center for February 28th. You must give it a read. Don't miss the details of L'Chaim, a toast to the Jewish legacy of Broadway, and the feature by Julieta Cervantes on Palace Bar's 37th anniversary celebration. And of course, you can read popular features like Hot Bodies by Leo Harley, HOTspots Hotties featuring Jared Torres, and What's Hot by Scott Holland. Grab your free copy of HOTspots magazine on stands Thursday, February 13th, or you might miss all the fun. You know, I love this magazine. It's changed since I've only been here 6 years, but following it since I've been here, it's changed, and the formats, the stories, I really enjoy picking that up every week.
And it's an edition dedicated to love.
Right.
What could be more HOTspots like than finding your Valentine love right on the cover there?
The DIY projects, though, that's so...
But it's very exciting, the 37th anniversary of the Palace coming up, which again, with HOTspots having its 40th anniversary. Again, we keep talking about all of these anniversaries of events and how much culture and history that we have. And, to imagine a LGBTQ bar and institution being around for 37 years is also iconic in itself. So.
And think about the Renaissance Festival. I mean, turkey legs and men in tights. Men in tights. Sorry.
Well, while you're talking about anniversaries, just as a reminder, this year is the 55th anniversary of the first Pride. Pride will be 55 years old this June. And it's really important to remember it because it started as a protest.
Yes.
And it really needs to go back to that
Its roots
in this year.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Jeff Oliverio, and let's queer up the USA view. Report shows anti-DEI power as 2025 Super Bowl ads feature far fewer LGBTQ people. This year's Super Bowl ad saw a sharp decline in queer representation, continuing a troubling trend of corporate retreat from Trump 2.0 administration goals and desires. The Super Bowl is America's most watched event. 2025 set an all-time record of an estimated 126 million viewers. According to Ad Age, only 4 out LGBTQ celebrities appeared in ads during the game: Dan Levy, Michelle Rodriguez, Jake Shane, and Wanda Sykes. That's down significantly from last year. Experts say brands are rolling back diversity efforts due to right-wing pressure. The Super Bowl remains a cultural powerhouse, but 2025 will represent a far-reaching change of queer representation associated with the event. The NFL was vocal in support of the LGBTQ community and included multiple LGBTQ events in New Orleans leading up to the game. Kendrick Lamar's halftime show was considered very significant for Black social justice, yet this year's ads were overwhelmingly white and male, leaving many asking, where is the progress? Super Bowl ads are tricky. I did watch something about the Super Bowl ads, not just a retreat, obviously a retreat from DEI, but a retreat from a lot of the big brands doing, what they used to invest in, like whether Budweiser or Pepsi. These Super Bowl ads in the age of streaming, a lot of emerging brands are taking the opportunity to set a an opportunity to release their brand or their name using the Super Bowl, and that also could pull back from celebrity and diversity representation. Again, I don't know that it's completely tied hand in hand, because again, what sells can be very different than what Trump's DEI efforts are. So, I think seeing the representation on what was on. I mean, I don't know about you, but I feel like every other commercial had the cast of Schitt's Creek in it. They were on every, and so whether it was Dan Levy multiple times, but I feel like I saw them constantly on screen, which I thought was great.
Right.
So.
And those ads are not cheap, right? I mean, they're like
$8 million for 30 seconds.
But personally, this sounds to me like another reason not to watch an overblown sports ball event resulting in life-threatening head injuries. I'll sit that one out.
And we kind of talked about this, I want to say 4 months or so ago, about the decline that they were going to be looking at seeing of LGBTQ plus actors in TV shows and movies, and now we're seeing it in this arena as well. So it's going to be interesting to see how this continues to play out, I think, for our community.
Well, the whole thing is that you don't know.
You don't know.
And the perception becomes their version of history.
Right.
And even if it's not for those reasons, that becomes the storyline, and that's sometimes more dangerous than the truth.
Wow.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Now, let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Gregg Shapiro, and let's queer up drag culture. Donald Trump takes over Kennedy Center, vowing to end drag. Donald Trump has announced plans to fire the Kennedy Center's Board of Trustees and appoint himself chairman. His aim is to end its occasional drag shows. Trump declared on Truth Social, quote, "At my direction, we are going to make the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. great again. I have decided to immediately terminate multiple individuals from the Board of Trustees, including the chairman, who do not share our vision for a golden age in arts and culture. Just last year, the Kennedy Center featured drag shows specifically targeting our youth. This will stop," end quote. A spokesperson told CNN that while the center is aware of Trump's post, it has received no official communication from the White House. However, some board members have received termination notices. As Trump moves to reshape the Kennedy Center, LGBTQ advocates are vowing to stand their ground, defending artistic freedom and public expression. So Trump is the exact same dirty diaper-wearing postulant discharge who didn't attend the Kennedy Center honors in 2017 and 2018 because he was concerned about his pungent presence being a political distraction. Now, under the guidance of Russell Vought, this broken old man whose idea of culture is a gold toilet plans to take control of one of the country's most significantly cultural institutions. And I also discovered that the orange tumor is proud of himself for naming self-loathing homosexual Richard Grinnell as interim head of the Kennedy Center. That's probably because Grinnell once told Trump he gave a Kennedy head, so Trump was confused by that. And when he says golden age, doesn't he mean golden showers age? Because he still likes to be pissed on, I think, doesn't he? Okay, I'm done.
Well, I mean, there is no one who has lower cultural IQ that I think that could be taking over the Kennedy Center honors. I can just imagine we're going to see maybe some WWE wrestlers at the Kennedy Center honors, or I don't know, some maybe former apprentice contestants,
Oh, I'm sure there's
performing there. Yeah, I mean,
you can fire them on the stage.
Yeah, if we can throw a Kid Rock or somebody else in there for cultural
Village
significance, maybe Village People. Yeah, so
I doubt it'll do the Village People, but
the Kennedys may be removing their naming rights anytime, any moment now. Yeah,
you said WWE, and I'm like, but isn't that drag?
Well,
A kind of drag.
But you can see it now. The Trump Kennedy Center.
yes, yeah,
And those letters will be very big and very gold.
yeah.
Okay. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight.
Let's now dive into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Robert Kesten. Let's queer up the USA view. Vital LGBTQ education advocacy, GLSEN, lays off 60% of staff. GLSEN, the nonprofit dedicated to safe schools for LGBTQ students, has laid off 60% of its workforce due to financial pressures and right-wing attacks. Executive Director Melanie Willingham-Jagers confirmed that 18 employees were let go in a restructuring move aimed at ensuring GLSEN's survival. The layoffs affected all departments. The cuts came just a day before the Human Rights Campaign also announced layoffs, highlighting financial strains on LGBTQ advocacy groups. Since 2022, GLSEN has faced far-right misinformation campaigns and funding losses as corporate donors retreat from DEI commitments. Despite the setbacks, GLSEN says they plan to streamline its work and relaunch in mid-2025. It is symbolic of everything that is happening. There's probably not one LGBTQ organization based here that isn't also suffering that same plight. Many of them have not laid people off yet, but unless our community, the citizens within our community, start giving to the level that they need to, that's commensurate with other communities across the board, our organizations will start to disappear, very similarly to how organizations died during the second Bush administration during the economic downturn. It's interesting because in our archive we have a poster of two events that took place at Madison Square Garden back in the 80s, both raising money for GMHC. At that time, Reagan wouldn't say gay and wouldn't say AIDS, and Bush wouldn't say AIDS and wouldn't say gay. But Madison Square Garden, using the rodeo and using Ringling Brothers, raised money, corporate money, cultural money for AIDS, for GMHC. We do not have that support now. Those kinds of organizations are running as fast as they can. Organizations are pulling out of supporting our community. We had those relationships with corporations where they liked us because we added value.
Yeah.
They don't believe we add value now. We have to change that paradigm. And that's not going to be easy because the White House and the surrounding billionaires are really pushing against it. And it's hard for our community to go up against that many billionaires. But we have to really figure out strategies to do that and save the organizations that really are the underpinnings of the success that we have had over the last 50 plus years.
And all these organizations are also probably vying for the same money, right? That's the same donors, or everybody's calling on the community to donate.
But that's why we need more people doing more.
Right.
We can't rely on just 5 people. Everybody has to give. People who have never given before. And there are plenty of people with money, but they do not give. They go to the bars, they drink, they go to the theater, they buy tickets, and I'm not talking about just gay theater. They're big donors at the Broward Center. They're big donors at the NSU Art Museum, but they don't give to our community, and that has to change.
You know, our fund had the Philanthropy Awards this past weekend, and, you know, we were talking a little bit about people were, I had a few other organizations that approached me about joining their board. And while that was very flattering, the issue is, on top of not having enough donors, we don't have enough people in our community doing work and being on these organizations and helping to support them. You know, and I think, you know, GLSEN is just an example, but, you know, there also needs to be some kind of unity amongst the nonprofits that come together and kind of try to align missions, reduce costs where they can for survival, and to do things together versus everybody being in their silo.
Right.
I don't disagree with that, but the reality is, considering the robustness of this community, it's hard for people to just cut back and realign in that way. And why should the organizations that are doing the best jobs have to sacrifice those elements when our community is not generous.
Yes, you're right.
Overall, our community is not generous. Yes, there are some people, but by and large, we are a very cheap community. And that has to change if people want to live this lifestyle and not go back to the way it was in the 60s and 70s. So let's not put the onus on the organizations that are doing the work. Let's put the onus on the community that has benefited from all these organizations doing the work, and they've never paid their fair share. We ask for the rich now to pay their fair share of taxes. We have to ask for our community, even if you can only give $100, $50, $20, but it's time to put pressure on those who can also afford to do a lot more and do not.
I agree.
That's true. Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer non-profit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Now let's dive deep into this big LGBTQ story for today. I'm Vaughn Biggs, and let's queer Black community. Statistics is just one part of the full story of Black queer people with HIV. Jordan J. Edwards, Deputy Director of the Normal Anomaly Initiative, has shared his powerful journey of National Black HIV/AIDS Awareness Day in an article for LGBTQ Nation. Edwards reflects on his personal experience with HIV, calling for a shift from mere statistics to storytelling. He says, quote, "HIV has never been just a statistic for me. Yes, we can acknowledge that Black, gay, and bisexual men are the most affected by HIV, but ending HIV isn't just about spreading awareness for one day," end quote. He recalls how the epidemic shaped his life from an early age. Diagnosed in 2013, Edwards turned his journey into advocacy, earning recognition from Houston's African American State of Emergency Task Force and attending the White House Rising Leaders Summit. He urges communities to fight stigma, systemic racism, and healthcare inequalities. He calls for ongoing action, equality in healthcare, and open conversations. Edwards champions the future where stories, not statistics, define the fight against HIV. I did a little bit of research on him, which was amazing to me because of his story and his backgrounds. But the thing that I love that he is, the word that he uses to describe his sexuality, which is that fluid sexuality, and because of that has allowed him to move in areas that some people might not have been able to move into. And that just talks to his resilience, I think, of what he's been able to do and accomplish during that time. And the other notes was he focuses on diversity. In everything he does, he's focusing on diversity, and that's something we have to do. We say that here a lot of times. We have to focus on that. But do we really? And sometimes I question that. Are we really focusing on those people that we need to focus on to end this? And it is more than just statistics. I love the idea of storytelling. I mean, that's how people are going to learn in our community.
Well, I mean, I'm sure you can comment on this better than I can, but I've spoken, I know Paul Thomas, who does Queer News here, and talking about where the resources are in the community for HIV and treatment and testing, and the centers, whether it's in Miami-Dade County and they're on Miami Beach, but what happens if you live in Homestead? Right. And if you're, we have them here in Wilton Manors, but what happens if you live way out in Margate and you don't have a clinic or something near you? How are those people getting services, and how are we spreading diversity of socioeconomic backgrounds, diversity of where people live and how they gather, and diversity of their community, of where they feel comfortable? Because someone may not come to Wilton Manors who is DL and doesn't want to be exposed to come to a gay area to get a HIV test, right?
Hasn't Dr. Summers is with Pride Lines, right?
Yeah.
Right.
He's talked about that, how they have other offices and locations.
Pride Lines is definitely expanding into a lot of more.
And you're right. And I see a lot of areas that, listen, when organizations want to go out and do an impact into the community, a lot of times they go for that lower fruit.
Yeah.
So where's the lower fruit? Wilton Manors. They're not going to go out to Weston. They're not going to go out to other areas of Broward County to reach them. But what I'm hopeful is, and I like to think so, because I know for us, it's been very successful with Holy Cross Health, and that is, this whole mail order for HIV self-testing kit.
Mister.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can actually have a kit sent free to your home. You do it in an oral swab and you get your results in 20 minutes. You get the information and go, okay, if it's positive or reactive, this is what you need to do. If it's not, this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
But at least there's ways of getting it out there that they've never had before.
Sure.
They've had these kits out way before COVID happened. The problem is they didn't really take off until after COVID tests came out, because it was so simple to have done, because it is just an oral swab.
And it's also important to remember that two organizations, CAN and AHF, are sitting on billions of dollars, and they're nonprofits, and they could invest in this if they were asked to or forced to, because obviously they're sitting on huge amounts of money. They're supporting some organizations, but many of the organizations they support are organizations that give them patients, which means they make even more money.
Right.
So it's time for them to invest in the community in ways that they haven't, especially with the political climate.
Yeah.
And we've got to get away from, well, I love mobile testing. I love mobile testing units. It's a great resource, but people know it as an HIV testing van or an STI testing van, just like they used to call I think in New York now, it was interesting, they no longer call it an STD clinic. They call it a sexual wellness clinic. And to me, it's like, change the name, get rid of that stigma that's attached to it, so that we can start normalizing the conversation and reach many more people in the community.
I agree.
I
agree.
Well, that is a big LGBTQ story for today. There is no other queer nonprofit media platform like this in the entire world. Support our LGBTQ stories by subscribing and sharing Queer News Tonight. Those are today's headlines from Queer News Tonight. These anchors represent the best of our LGBTQ and ally community.
If our community is important to you, share this news with your friends and family. Join the conversation on your favorite streaming platform.
Queer News Tonight is the only live LGBTQ digital television show in the world that is out of the closet and into the headlines.
We need your support. If our community is to grow and then thrive, we must tell our stories and bring them to the attention of the broader world. This is the only place in the world that tells these types of LGBTQ stories in motion and sound. That is the passion of HOTspots magazine, Happening Out television network, and Queer News Tonight.
I'm your anchor, Vaughn Biggs, and on behalf of these LGBTQ reporters, the anchors of Queer News Tonight, including Jeff Oliverio, Gregg Shapiro, and Robert Kesten, we will see you daily at 8 p.m. To our LGBTQ world, we hope you will join us by embracing love, generosity, bravery, be transformative, and queer. Good night.
Good night.